fall apart with the court system. An extended period of neglect caused everything you see today. So we've not just been in a crisis, we've been here quite a while. This year looks like another year. We're going to pretend like everything is just all right. And so, because we've been in this extended period, that we find ourselves away from God. And our chances of having things turn around seemingly are fading away. I hear people in despair. It's only going to get worse. It won't get better. Touch your neighbor and say, don't give up yet. God ain't finished with us yet. You see, the case started with us straying step by step. We walked further and further away from the Lord. The crisis of spiritual neglect, not only that we took our eyes off the Savior, but we also took our eyes off the assignment. And you should say to me, Pastor, what is our spiritual assignment? Here's the assignment. He said, go and make disciples. As a generation, we have gotten, let me give you some statistics of the world. We just had a world meeting just for Baptists around the world in Nashville, Tennessee, and I was getting an update on the meeting that Christianity is on the decline. We ain't getting people saved. People are not coming to know Jesus Christ as their personal Lord and Savior. And there are a number of reasons for that. But the number one reason is nobody trying to save them. Nobody's sharing. My son and I was out the other day, and he was moving through, and someone gave him a piece of paper. He had never seen a tract before. Do you hear me? Hands up who know what a tract is. Put your hands down. My son had never seen a tract before. And he asked me, what is this? I said, it's a witnessing tool. It's a story designed for someone to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with you in a quick 1, 2, 3 step to get you to know Jesus Christ and to ask you to give your life to Christ on the side of the street, in the food store, while you're at work. And my point being is, when last have you been a witness? When last have you shared the love of Jesus Christ with anybody? Or maybe you ain't sure. The question is that maybe we're not sharing it because we're not sure we're saved. Maybe there's a feeling that that's what the pastor is supposed to do. That's what the evangelist is supposed to do. And you might be right, but we are the army. We are the people. If you're concerned about the next generation, you've got to share the Christ that you love. Here's the sad reality, and I'll push on from this point. Preparing for a crusade in 2016, and I had to call in one of our youth leaders. I said, give me some names of young evangelist preachers who are sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ in our denomination. You know, we struggle to find 5. Hear me. We sat there for a good hour and a half trying to find some people that we could get to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ to the next generation. That we could give them an assignment to go to islands, to go into the field, to do the work of an evangelist. We struggle to find people who are dedicated to preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. Before you said, that's for those trained. Before I ever got the title preacher, I was an engineer and preaching the gospel. So you don't have to be full-time to preach the gospel. I worked in where I worked, and I was preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Get worse.
Because it was God. What God
Haven't you noticed that if you could miss one Sunday,
was to share our
you
faith,
could miss 2?
was to share the good news.
Now don't be
I believe that we should be charged as a nation. And we are already paying the price for spiritual neglect. We noticed the problem in the past, but we did nothing to address it. Because we were too busy trying to keep our stuff. Trying to make our own ends meet. Let me say this to you. If we don't stop right now, I know we've got budgets already prepared for the new year, but if a social agenda is not the largest chunk of our budget, we're playing. If we're not going to go after the socialization process, if we're not going to help our children and the next generation know what it is to be a good citizen, to live a life that is pleasing, to be a reasonable person, let me say, church, it means that we got to spend more money too. Someone said the cheapest place to find people is church. They just cheap. We've got to spend money in evangelism. I submit to you, I'm not afraid to tell you that we've got to train more people than we've ever trained before. And we've got to send them into the mission field. Not in Africa, not in Europe, not in the Middle East. We've got to send them into the mission field called the Bahamas, in the highways and the byways. We need to take by force the airways, that every time they turn on a TV, there's enough programming of Christian content to shift the atmosphere. And if you ain't spending the money on the airways, the people who are changing the atmosphere are spending the money, propagating the message of gun and violence. We've got to take over the process of preparing. Now, I said a budget item, but I'm not expecting the government to do this. That's not their job. Government can't change you. Only you can change you. And so now we've got to move to a place where our communities now work on community centers, where we start doing things for ourselves, where we start raising up leaders that don't want to be politician leaders, that don't need a title leader. Listen, you don't need someone to know your name. You don't need someone to call your name. All I need is an army of God to go out and make a difference in this next generation. You don't need to have no one call you bishop, apostle, doctor, reverend. You just need to be on your assignment doing what God has called for you to do. Second point is that this discernment of this crisis. So look at the crisis. Either the owner of the estate didn't realize or simply didn't care about the pitfalls in the shape of the vineyard. But Solomon noticed immediately. The owner, it's their property, but they don't notice. I'm really tired of my guests telling me something's different. They notice immediately. People aren't as kind as they used to be. They ask me, what's wrong? Is it the pressure of Bahamas? It's the economy. This is what they tell me. Is the economy that bad? We've had worse times than this. But we didn't conduct ourselves the way we're conducting ourselves now. That we've been without. I know you think that we're bad now, but we've been to a place where we didn't have as much tourists as we have today, and we still gave tourists. We didn't have cars, we didn't have gratuity, we didn't have pension schemes, we didn't have health care program, we didn't have the things we have today. But we knew how to give God thanks and praise for the things He had provided for us and the things He had done for us. That maybe we just don't care about the state of our country. Oh, we talk a lot. Every day we talk on the radios. Every day we maximize social media with our opinions. We're in chat groups and 200, 300 messages in one day. That we are talking about things but doing absolutely nothing. Maybe we've reached to a place where we've got to look at the problem and accept and come up with a solution on how to attack the area one piece at a time. Can I say to you that the lesson we can learn from this is that the weeds will grow if no one's paying attention to the field. It's nothing untoward. Nobody is to blame for bringing it here. That we could blame some other culture, we could blame some other people. That if you don't pay attention to your children, if you don't pay attention to your spiritual life, if you don't pay attention, that's why we're charging you with neglect, because you haven't paid attention to the signs that were in your house, the signs that were in your community. That said, I know it's hurt this morning, but someone has to wake you up that there's some signs in the community. If you see some tenants hanging up, they're selling drugs in your house. If you see them tagging buildings, they let you know this area is run by this set of guys. And until you wake up and realize that the signs are there and start to take back our community, these thugs will believe that they're in charge of our country and they represent the good-natured Bahamians that are here. And I came this morning to wake up the silent majority and ask you to be silent no more. Stop sitting down watching your cable. Stop looking through the window talking about what they're doing over there. You've got to get in war. So, what caused this state of neglect? As he pondered the situation, Solomon saw that the source of the neglect of the field was the same cause of the neglect of the estate, the broken down walls, and he concluded it was because the owner was slothful. Those are harsh words. I wouldn't have gone that far, but he implies that idleness had taken over our people. This government. So you're unemployed. It don't mean you don't have nothing to do. You can volunteer at any of our programs, at any of our homes. And I know today we only volunteer to get something on our resume to when you're graduating, and they say that you have to do some community service, but it should be a way of life that if you're in transition, if you're between jobs, if you're neither here or there, find yourself with your hands doing something. Idle hands are still, if our children, and let me say, it is a challenge to find employment. I would not want to be the leader of the Bahamas, because you are charged with finding employment for this more than 300,000 people. And the more these idle hands are doing nothing, they will find some mischief to do. And so we've got to get to the place that we find some employment. We find that those that are inactive, that we incorporate them with some work in the community. Solomon called him not only slothful, but he called him lazy. If you're not active serving the Lord, many of us come to church, but we're not really active in our church. That we come to be entertained on a Sunday so that we can say that we were in church. But the words on Sunday morning should lead us, simply, to be the social action committee. If when we leave out here, we should have a gospel that has legs. We should have a Sunday morning worship that leads us to a place to make a difference in somebody's life. A preacher this morning said that we ought to add value by being here. That while you're here in the Bahamas, you ought to add value. Let me say to you, I am always amazed. Just the other day, I found out the patron of a high school here in the Bahamas, and they read his resume.
We reached the phase where we have to say